So hi everyone, welcome to this introductory video. In this video, we are going to start right from the beginning and look at networking in the simplest possible way. This video is mainly for someone who is a fresher, a beginner, or simply curious about networking and trying to understand where to start, what this domain is all about, and what the very first step should be. The purpose of this video is just to give you a basic introduction to the networking domain itself. We are not going to go into detail about how individual components work, the different technologies that we use, or how networks are configured. This is simply a high level overview designed to help you understand what networking is and what this field looks like before you start learning it in detail. So even if you have absolutely no background in networking, that's perfectly fine. This video starts from the very beginning. So this is an introduction to networking, understanding the technology that connects the world. So if you look on the right hand side, we have the modern world and we have hospitals, banks, data centers, schools, and apartments, people living here. So whether you're exploring networking as a career, beginning your journey in information technology, or simply curious about how the modern world stays connected, this introduction is designed to give you a clear understanding of one of the most important technologies that power our digital lives. So if you see on the right hand side, we have people using laptops, mobile phones, smartphones. There are the smart TVs, there are office computers, online banking, there are hospital systems. So basically today we live in a world where communication happens almost instantly. We send message across continents in seconds, join meetings with people in different countries. We stream high definition videos. We access information from anywhere we want and make secure online payments with just a few clicks, right? Behind every one of these everyday activities is a technology that quietly works in the background, which is nothing but computer networking. So we know this term called internet. So networking is it's not only about connecting computers together, right? It is the foundation of the modern digital world, enabling people, businesses, governments, hospitals, schools, and countless other organizations to exchange information quickly, reliably, and most importantly, securely. Imagine without networking, the internet as we know it would not exist. Cloud computing would be impossible, online banking would stop functioning, and the digital services we depend on every day would simply disappear. So, this is how everything is connected. We have internet, we see everything connects to the internet, and that's how we are exchanging information. So this introduction to networking is designed for anyone who is curious about this field and wants to understand what networking is all about, how things are connected, right? Or how to even get started or how to visualize what this domain is all about. So the journey begins with one simple question. What exactly is networking? So for that, let's take a look at a simple example. So we see a panda here. I think he's working on a computer on a laptop, probably trying to draw something on his laptop. And we have a penguin. He's also working on his laptop, and maybe he's composing a music, or probably listening to some kind of a listening to some songs. So at the moment, what we see is panda and penguin both are working on their own computers. Even though they are creating something useful, neither computers can share its work with the other because they are completely isolated. That's a very important point, isolation. So when computers were designed, right, computers were never meant to work this way, like never meant to work in isolation. They were designed to connect and exchange information. Now let's continue with the same example. Here we see The panda saying, "Hey penguin, I'd love to hear the music that you are composing, or probably the music that you're listening to." Likewise, the penguin also says, "Of course, I'd love to see the drawings you've been working on too." So what's the solution for this? In this example, we had only two computers, right? So just running a cable between these computers solves the problem. Since Panda wanted to share his drawing with Penguin and Penguin wanted to share his music with Panda, we could simply connect the two computers together. Once they were connected, they could exchange information with each other. And with only two computers, this was simple and very easy to manage. But what happens when more computers want to join, right? Uh, we have a new character. The fox has joined the gang. Now let's introduce a third computer, which is the fox's computer. Fox also wants to exchange information with Panda and Penguin. Since there are only three computers, connecting them together is still quite manageable. All three computers can communicate and exchange information with one another. But what happens when the numbers of computer continues to grow, right? So look at this picture. We have new members joining the gang. We have an elephant here, we see a rabbit, we have a tortoise, we have an owl, we have a cat. There are many computers that we have. Now imagine that instead of three computers, we have hundreds or even thousands of computers, and every one of them wants to communicate and exchange information with others. If we try to connect every computer directly to every other computer, which is not possible because the modern laptops we have only one network port, right? But let's assume even if it was possible to connect 5 or 10 network cables, the number of connections would quickly become difficult to manage. There will be more number of connections and managing them would be very difficult. So how do we connect all these devices and make sure they can also exchange or communicate with each other, right? So this is where computer networking comes into picture. So instead of connecting every computer directly to every other computer, we use a networking device. So in this picture, you can see there is a networking device. Basically, all our computers can connect to a switch, and from the switch, uh, they connect to other networking devices such as a firewall, and from there, a router which and from there we are connecting to a router which helps the communication move through the network and then beyond to the internet itself, right? But what exactly, I mean, before we go further, right? But what exactly are these devices and what role does each one play, right? So here we are seeing a switch. A switch is basically it connects multiple computers, laptops within the same local network and allows them to communicate with each other. Here, this one with a wall and a fire is basically a security device. It's a firewall which helps protect the network by controlling what traffic is allowed to enter or leave the network. This is a router. A router basically helps connect different networks. So this is one network. Like this, we could have many other networks in different locations, right? So a router connects different networks together and helps information travel from one network to another. And finally, an internet service provider. We call them as an ISP. They provide the connectivity that connects our network to the internet, to the outside world. So now we have another question. Let's say, so if you want to understand how all of these devices and technologies actually work, where do I start? I mean, we have switch, we have firewall, we have routers, we have ISPs, wireless. There's so much, right? So where do we start? That's an obvious question. So the good news is you don't have to figure out all of this on your own. There are structured learning paths in networking. There are many certification and learning paths from basic to expert. The more you advance, the better you become. And the larger and more complex networks you can design, manage, and troubleshoot. So a lot of freshers ask me this question, like people who are beginning, right? Like they have just finished their college. Where do they start? So this is where you start. This is the place where you start. You begin with basics. You can set up a small home lab, understand how devices communicate, learn the fundamentals, and then slowly move into an associate level certification, right? At the associate level, you have different vendors. There are different certification tracks. Like Cisco is probably one of the most popular one, but you also have Juniper. I think most of them start with CompTIA N plus. I think that is this is the foundation certification that can give you some clarity. We also have other vendors like Aruba, Palo Alto, and Fortinet. So you can start with something like a CCNA, which is your associate level certification, which is a very good place to begin. Or you can take another associate level path such as JNCI. The underlying networking concepts are still the same. What changes is mainly the way you configure and operate the different vendor devices. So at this stage, you're usually learning how a small office or a basic enterprise network works. You're building the skills needed for your first networking role, basically. So this could be like probably technical support or network operations, monitoring networks, or a junior network engineer position. So as you gain more knowledge and experience, you can move into the professional level certifications such as CCNP or the equivalent track from other vendors. At that level, you start dealing with much larger enterprise environments, more complex routing and switching, troubleshooting, designing, redundancy, and day to day operations. Then you have the expert level. This requires much deeper study, but also much more practical experience. This is where certifications such as CCIE or other expert level tracks come into picture. And networking itself doesn't stop with routers and switches. Like once you understand networking properly, it starts opening doors into other domains as well. Like you can move into cloud networking, you can move into network security, you can move into wireless data center technologies. I think we don't have big IP mentioned here, but you have load balancing, and there are many other areas. For example, if you're interested in the security, right, we have vendors like Palo Alto and Fortinet. They have their own technologies and certification paths around the next generation firewalls. If you're interested in wireless, we have Aruba, which has its own track. Data center has its own technologies and certifications as well. So there isn't one single networking path. You start with the fundamentals, build your base, gain some experience, and then you can decide which direction you want to grow. Now that we have seen where the networking journey can take you, the next question is, what do you actually need to learn first? What are the fundamentals that everything else is built on, right? I would say the first thing what you start by understanding how communication happens in a network. That is where models like OSI or TCP/IP come into picture. Then you need to understand how devices are identified, like how one laptop is identified in a network or how a printer is identified a network. So that brings you into this area, IP addressing. From there, you start looking at how devices communicate inside a LAN, a local area network, right? That's where we talk about Ethernet, how switches move traffic within that network, and how routers help networks communicate with each other. Then gradually you may move into subnetting, more much advanced concept like little advanced concepts like subnetting, VLANs, wireless networking, basic security, and one of the most important skills in networking, which is troubleshooting. So you don't need to master all of these on day one. The idea is to understand one concept, then build the next concept on top of it. Once these fundamentals become strong, everything you saw in the previous slide, like the professional certification, enterprise networks, cloud, security, data center, they start becoming much easier to understand. So, just to conclude, we started this journey with one simple question: what exactly is networking? And as we have seen, the idea itself is quite simple. Networking is about connecting devices so they can communicate and exchange information with each other. What begins with two computers can grow into hundreds, thousands, or even millions of connected devices. Behind all of that communication are the switches, routers, firewalls, protocols, standards, and technologies that make the modern network possible. And if you're just beginning your journey into networking, you don't need to understand everything at once. Start with the fundamentals, build one concept at a time, practice what you learn, and gradually all of these pieces will begin to connect. Welcome to the world of computer networking. I hope this video was informative and helped clarify that very first step of getting started with networking. If you have any questions or if there is something you'd like me to cover in the upcoming videos, feel free to leave a comment. I'd be happy to hear your suggestions. Thank you all.